So
yeah, onto JuJutsu Kaisen.
What else we got? Chainsaw Man and then a kaiju, right?
Yep.
Yeah, fine. Let's jump to Jujutsu then. To be honest, I think really excited to talk about this chapter because
Really?
honestly, dude, I'm like every week. This is it?
It's good action. It's really it's.
Tommy. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce the first name, so I'm not gonna pronounce the first name. But dude, on like a weekly basis, dude, like Akutami just like blows my mind, man. I don't know what it is.
He does good action.
It's amazing to me how much this series has blown up with the release of the anime this year, and like how much more attention it's getting. And I can't believe so many people, myself included, were sleeping on this. Like, I definitely first read probably the first 15 to 20 chapters of Jujutsu last year, but I didn't really pick it up. And then I gave it another go this year.
Because you could finally like read it.
There was going to be an anime actually, and boom! I was just like, wow! Like, why didn't I go through this? It's just a great flipping series, and I just want to. Yeah, sorry. I'm just gonna start out with some shouts out right there because I just want to pump this up.
Well, going back to the anime, just a little quick thing. You know how it wasn't this episode, but the one before where you see I guess spoilers, Yuji dies, kind of.
In quotations, yeah.
I just find it I don't want. I probably want to do a small video on it, like the whole theme of death and like curses. But you notice how like how Yuji told Megami like live long, he told him something that wouldn't allow him to be a curse. And I never noticed that until I watched the anime. Obviously.
Interesting.
And I'm like, oh wow. I was like,
there's kind of almost a parallel there between what Nanamin said to Itadori or Yuji.
And like the girl too was like, I was like, oh wow, like this is kind of like a great parallel. Like even from the beginning, he was gonna he wasn't planning to like, well, not planning, but like he thought of something to like, live long, say something to like so he wouldn't curse. So I just found that really interesting, and I guess it very different from like what his grandfather said, where it's like go help people and stuff like that. And
it's kind of funny because that you mentioned that as well. We're going off on a bit of a side tangent here. We'll have to bring it back, but you saying that also made me think of when Yuji first meets the principal of their school, the guy with the glasses, whose name totally escapes me right now. He says to Yuji, he's like, "Oh, people always die with regrets, like especially those of a jujutsu sorcerer. Like you have to know that you're going to come up to something and that you might have these regrets." And I think it's interesting because there's this idea with what you're pointing out and the Nanamin thing and the Kukasaki thing where you can die with regrets, but kind of don't you dare pass on those regrets to other people. Yeah. They've already got enough of a burden living on without you now, so don't make it worse than it is.
But it's funny because like going back from the previous chapter with Toto, like we have the burden to bear, but like it's not in a negative way or a negative curse way. It's more like we just gotta keep pushing on because like it's basically an unwritten rule. It's like a nod of your head.
You have to pick up their baggage, but you have to do so in a way that you don't, it doesn't add to your own, oddly enough. I don't know how else to say that. I know that's kind of paradoxical or contradictory, but that's kind of what it is, right? Because even Yuji says, like, oh, Nanamin, like, I'll carry your burden now too, basically. But I guess it's the fact that it's passed on positively. Yeah. And it's that person's acknowledgement of needing to carry on that burden. That's kind of the thing, as opposed to it being forced upon it. Anyways, we went off on a tangent.
But like, onto this chapter. I mean, just great action, man. This has been pretty cool. Like, just like Toto doing his, like his curse technique, and then this dude just like moving his body parts and like looking like a whole snail. It's just crazy. And then he uses soul manipulation to make like these new like I can't even pronounce it soul seismer or something like that.
Hold on, I gotta find the panel here. The polymorphic soul isomer. So normally it's kind of funny because polymorphic isomers are actually things in is it chemistry? I'm pretty damn.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. But he threw in soul to like change it, to tweak it, to make it fit.
Yeah, of course. Because he could like manipulate his soul and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the polymorphic soul isomer. Yeah, that was kind of cool. I caught that as well. particular chapter, was the art, for lack of a better term, looser to you? Like, I felt, if I had to say, the lines and the drawing were very I felt like they've been more precise than a lot of other chapters. This one feels kind of almost like scratchy and loose in comparison.
See, I would disagree. It's a very like I think we predicted that either we're gonna get an action heavy chapter or something else in between. But this one was like a very action heavy, and like I understand where you're coming from, but I disagree because like I could see where everything like when you actually visually see everything. I mean, I could see maybe like on chapter like 6 and 7. Or I guess 6, with like when he switched with the poly, and then it's him, and then it's Yuji, and he slaps, on the top right. So that could be like a little.
Page 6 and 7. Sorry.
Yeah, like on the top right, and then like I could definitely understand that's confusing if you're not paying attention and you get it, because it is like okay, it's instant where you don't like see the visually like switching. You just see the placements of the next, like who switched who, what I mean? Like what did he do? Like, okay, he switched him with him, and then he switched himself with, it's kind of like that. So, I kind of see what I see what you mean, but I disagree. Like I see where the action is. I mean, like when he gets thrown into a department store, it's like holy shit, like that fucking splash page is like awesome. And
oh yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I don't really mean like I didn't mean looser in the sense of it's messy, but I think like for example, if you were to compare Mahito's face in the first panel of this chapter versus the last panel of last chapter, for example.
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's very like it's stylistically, it's just very different. I feel like I could just be.
He could change. He could change his face. He could do that.
Well, I know he can. It's just interesting. I just found the art style to be a little different this week, and I couldn't tell you what it was. It just felt like the only way.
It's funny because like that first chapter very much reminds me of like you ever watching a TV show, or I mean, not first chapter, that first page where you're watching a TV show or like an anime, and then like it cuts to commercial right then and like right before he says like
and it comes back.
Yeah.
And it gives you that like 3-second recap.
Yeah. Like we just saw.
That too.
Yeah. It's funny because like that's the exact words that happened last week. So they just like he's just
He's resetting the stage.
Yeah, of course.
You, like back into it. Yeah. I got you for sure.
I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the X-Men animated series where like.
Of course.
Oh, do you?
Where Wolverine never ever uses his claws.
No, but there was a part where like Bishop, from the future.
The future, yeah.
It was he comes and I think it was a hard cut, and then commercial break comes back, and then he yells for the future, and then he starts shooting.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's the '90s for you.
Yeah, of course. But like but it's funny because like I'm like, oh man, I wish it was something similar like that, or like, but it's basically like you said, it's resetting the stage and like not a rehash, but yeah, it was pretty cool, and it's kind of interesting that I didn't know his previous attack, even staying on the first page. His previous attack when he did the body repel thing with the multiple mouths, that created like a floor for them, so that was pretty.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. Yeah, they're like almost standing on a web. It was really interesting. I didn't catch that either. And then and it's interesting because you can see more of it as the fight progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
you're right.
Some of these panels, it's just crazy because like the way it's tied into the fighting, you can see that it's there. He uses it well. Even when he zooms out to that panel that you were talking about on 7, where it's like really zoomed out and you can see like all the swaps happening and stuff like that. Even right there, you can see like they're still on that floor and stuff like that. So I like the consistency of that because sometimes you'll read a series and then they're on a floor, but then they're on like a different floor, and you're like, wait, how did they get to that different floor? As opposed to this keeps it very concise.
Going back to the thing that they're standing on, it's actually kind of brutal. On a closer look, if you actually look through or like zoom past the pages.
Oh, you can see it's
the
like
eyes
skin and stuff.
And you see eyes, teeth, and it's like, it's kind of that's brutal.
It's creepy, right? Because they're literally fighting on like dead people's bodies.
Yeah, and like probably some of them are like alive.
Half alive. Oh God, yeah, absolutely. It's man. You know what's funny? JuJutsu is probably one of the. I don't want to say it's one of the weirder series I've read because like stuff like Attack on Titan is arguably even more out there. But there's a really, I guess, subtle macabre kind of or like thing going on with the whole series with that type of stuff, where you don't think about it, but it's always behind it. And that's like kind of what you're talking about, because like it's like, oh, you know, it's a fight scene, and then you're like, they're fighting on dead people.
Yeah,
but you don't
like
think about that
the
initially.
the skin and body of like semi alive and also a lot of dead.
Slash dead people. Yeah, like it's crazy. And there's just like this darkness that's always subtly hanging around Jujutsu. You get pulled into the action in a chapter like this, and you almost kind of forget about it.
I agree. We're like, oh man, like he took that hit, like, oh, this technique, but then like in the background, like, yeah, he's like, oh man, and when you actually look at it, it's kind of like, oh, this is terrible. Like, you know,
it is, right? It's like, even when you look at Toto gets like clipped into that mall, right?
Yeah, the
like,
department
he's in,
store.
Like, that store or whatever, because you can see like the mannequins and the clothing and all that flying in the background. So he bodies that thing, but then when Mahito goes to fight Yuji, even in that first panel where he's like, okay, it's time to pile it on, you can see like the teeth are coming out of that one.
Oh yeah, no, I see it.
Like the human, and then same in the next one, and you're just like, oh right, like these are people. So there's always this weird darkness there that, you know, you kind of have to put it in the back of your mind while you're reading Jujutsu, because otherwise it's just like, it's kind of nasty.
It is, but I mean, I guess we know people were gonna die anyway. Like, you know, in that world, it's kind of messed up. You know, there's curses that like could physically hurt you. So, especially in this arc where it's like, okay, I wasn't expecting this many people. You know, people died in like previous arcs and stuff like that, but not into like this.
Well, actually, the civilian casualties in this one was crazy.
It's massive.
Gojo got to the point where he stopped caring, right? He's just like, I have to minimize casualties because there's going to be some no matter what.
Yeah, and that's pretty, but that's pretty good callback. But going back to Toto fighting the first the polymorph one, they're basically a glass cannon. They get hit hard, but not get hit, essentially.
I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest, because the burly nature of the design was making me think the exact opposite. Also, this is a bit of an odd compliment, but this is probably my favorite looking cursed enemy, or like,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's kind of like, it's like a not a sub boss, but he's like, oh, he's a tough enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I also like the design because it's almost human. Because like, if you think back about, for example, the very first thing that like Yuji fights in that school, you know, it's got like mouths all over the place and weird heads. Even the first special grade is kind of
weird, and like eyes
weird.
Like
it's weird. So this is one of the very few curses in the series so far where I've been like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. Yeah. And I find that fairly intimidating at the same time, and it's also kind of creepy. Because it was a nice blend as opposed to just...
No, I know what you mean, because they look physically, like, strong. Like, they like... Yes, yeah. And they like, man, they look like tough, you know, enemies to fight. So, I definitely got that. And then when there was more appearance, like, oh, shit, like, nah, like, time to get serious, you know what I mean?
Oh, I loved it. Well, you know what's also funny about this fight? So, in the very first, I guess, video that we uploaded, / the second, when we were kind of discussing Toto's domain expansion, we actually got a little bit of a hint to that right here.
You think so?
Yeah, well, no, sorry, not maybe a hint, but I guess we kind of had an option crossed off, because we had been, you know, theorizing that maybe he, do me a favor, dude. Pause for a second. I smell something burning.
Okay.
Right? Oh, you're checking me for a stroke? Okay, thank you. I was like, what the heck? Okay, my bad, bro. That tripped me out a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, good. But yeah, we were...
It's coming from outside. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry. Minor false alarm. Thought the house was on fire. Okay, my bad. So...
Yep. You were talking about the, his, like, the domain expansion?
Yeah. So I guess we had one of the options kind of crossed off, because we were talking about switching places with any type of object, and that's exactly what we saw here. He puts a little bit of cursed energy into the rock, throws the rock, and then switches places with the rock.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think his domain expansion will be... I no longer, I guess, think his domain expansion will be... I guess, a more improved version of that. I think it'll be something a little more crazier. Maybe going back to that idea of dreams into reality kind of thing.
Could be that. It could definitely be out there. You know, like well, that could definitely be like I mean, again, I might just be stretching because you know, like he could switch things with anything. So like maybe like you said, he could maybe switch dreams to reality. So, you know, yeah.
There's so many things to be, seen still.
Yeah.
What oh man, sorry, I'm just looking through panels again. I'm like, oh man, this series is just.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
it's just dope action. I mean, Yuji dodging his there's like.
All those pronged attacks, like he's like in the
well,
middle of them
that's
all.
funny
Yeah,
because that's the previous attack, but now it's spikes. So yeah, so like we see.
more for me to get stabbed from.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because before he did it like it was just one mouth thing, and then he did it multiple, and now they have spikes on. So like, it's a cool little nice evolution if you notice it. If you don't, it's kind of like, oh man, that attack looks kind of crazy.
He's like up. He's like getting better as he fights. Yeah. Okay, so here's my confusion. Man, Toto must have kicked the crap out of those other two.
Oh yeah, again, glass
he's
cannon.
on for like 3 pages, bro. 3 pages, and he's back, and I'm like, wow, okay, Toto's a beast. But I mean, 99% chance to live through this,
Yeah.
right? So, I'm not gonna lie. I want to be mind blown by this next chapter because I don't understand how 0.2 seconds of a domain expansion is going to mean anything.
Well, you know where you learned that from, right? Watching Gojo.
Wasn't it Sukuna the last time when?
No, it was Gojo. Remember, he had to like do it in 0.2 again because there was multiple people there, like regular people. And if you did it where regular people were,
oh, you're right. Yeah, when Gojo was downstairs,
that's why.
right.
That's why he said, you know, the one who taught me that, you know, obviously.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. My bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
that's
I was
what.
thinking because Sukuna was still there, that maybe he thought of it
No.
from him. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. Okay, but it makes sense with Gojo's domain expansion.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's too much for humans to process and stuff like that. But I don't understand what good it's going to be here unless his domain expansion is slightly altered. Because if you think back to when he trapped Nanami in the first time, it was basically just a sphere where he could just manipulate his body in any way, shape, or form within the sphere. Like, he could be like 17 million hands, or he could, you know, all that type of stuff. But if you've only got 0.2 seconds and you're just expanding like that, like, I don't understand at least how they're not going to kind of get out of this. I was a little confused in the intimidation.
Well, he's always evolving. I mean, that's one thing we noticed. Like, now he could do it in 0.2, so it's kind of like, you know, before it was different. And it's kind of funny. I noticed that his hands do the sign on it. If you look at his tongue in the last page.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He actually never does a domain expansion with his hands. It's always with his tongue. He's never done it with his hands.
Well, he does it with his hands because his tongue becomes hands. But yeah, it's kind of
okay. Sorry. With what as a human would be classified as hands, he does not use his hands.
I'm still gonna call it. I think Toto's arm's gonna get cut off. One of his hands is gonna get cut off. I think that's gonna, cause that's crazy. It's gonna be in. Oh man, it's gonna be pretty insane. I mean, I really like this chapter. Super action packed. It was like high octane. Like I'm like.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it really was.
Non-stop. There's such little dialogue in this chapter. It's actually mind blowing. Actually, there's a little bit more than I thought. Anyways, the thought that I want to just put out into the world, I guess, before next week's chapter is I think this fight is finally going to be where Itadori taps into just a teensy little bit of Sukuna's power, because I didn't remember this actually until I was watching the anime with my girlfriend the other day. We were doing the episode. Oh, actually, I guess it was this week's episode where Gojo is explaining how cursed energy and stuff works at Itadori.
Yeah.
And he says, and he doesn't say this, but he thinks it to himself, like, Sukuna's techniques will become yours.
Oh, right, to his body.
Imprinted in your body.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Sukuna go off, right? Like he just went off a few chapters back.
Yeah, because I remember
alone.
Yuji was like, when he was in the anime, he was complaining, like, he was like, man, I wish I could do like a Kamehameha and stuff like that.
Yeah, or a Sengun.
Yeah.
It was just like all the shonen tropes, exactly.
Yeah.
So my theory for this fight is the counter to this is going to be Yuji tapping into like just a teensy bit of Sukuna.
That's gonna be it's not, I don't think so either, but that's gonna be kind of a it's gonna be fun to like watch and like see how that's gonna, because he's, Itadori is a brawler, right? And like the other guy, he's basically like a slasher, so it's cool how that's gonna come out. Like if he punches someone, it's like slash is gonna come out. So
oh yeah, I don't know, I hadn't even been thinking about that. Because like Sukuna doesn't even have to move, right? He just kind of throws cursed energy out there and it cuts. So yeah. I'm wondering, because he has two. What's the other one? It's something to do with like obliterating or something like that.
I thought
like cutting and the other's like.
I thought the second one. I mean, I might be wrong. I thought the other one was like copying, because he had the similar one for the flame curse dude, or the mountain curse.
We'll go back and we'll double check that, because I forget specifically what both of his powers are. But
because I remember, because he has two. I was like, oh, and then like that was kind of interesting.
So just throwing that out into the world. I think we're gonna see a little bit of.
That's not a bad theory, because like, yeah, you're right. Gojo did say that. I mean, he wouldn't say that without a reason, or like, you wouldn't write something like that without a reason.
Yeah, if you didn't plan to bring it full circle. Yeah. So I think that's what we're gonna see come to fruition.
Because the patchwork guy, I mean, he's worried if Sukuna comes out. Because remember what he said before, like, if you ever use that again near me,
I'll kill you. Yeah, exactly.
So that's gonna be but I mean, overall review of this, like, awesome action-packed chapter, and like, I'm excited what's coming. I mean, obviously probably gonna be more action.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have something crazy. I think we'll get a bit of a cut to something else next chapter, just for a few pages, because I don't know. I just feel there has to be, because the last two were like completely focused on this. Yeah. So I think we're gonna get a little bit of a cut.
I mean, I could already see like it's always like the last page of the chapter. Like, man, I could see it. The last page of the chapter, somebody's gonna get not killed, but man, it's gonna be blood everywhere. And the hand is.
I feel you.
Yeah, someone's hand is gonna get cut off. Saying, but overall, great chapter. I'm excited for that one. So, what's next you wanna